We all understand the type of climate that we're dealing with. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
I'd love to know sort of what's your why? What makes you tick? Why are you so successful?
Have a dialogue with your lawyer. Have a dialogue with your agent.
Both sort of passionate about sort of what we do.
Again, vet your agent to make sure that they're experienced and they're local. I like that idea.
No excuse to miss it on Saturdays from 8 to 9.
That's right.
WBZ.
And now, the show that gives you the latest and most relevant housing market news. Real Estate Radio Boston with financial expert Rick Shearer and legal professional Ali Alavi.
We're seeing a great deal of a trend with regards to first-time home buyers, and David, you can talk to this point as well. People are more and more gravitating, I think, perhaps younger generation and older generation. I think at both ends of the spectrum, we're seeing them being attracted towards a condominium living. And what we want to talk about today is what are some of the pros and cons. And perhaps, David, you can talk to this point. I mean, at what point does a potential buyer should be educated on the pros and cons? And we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I think personally, real estate agents or realtors absolutely owe the obligation to their buyers to have a conversation with them at their very first meeting about the pros and cons of owning a condominium association.
Exactly. And maybe it is not a good thing to buy a condo for that particular couple or individual's wants and needs. Frank, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that, forget about challenges, what are some of the things that makes buying a condo an attractive option?
I think it's the ownership, the private ownership. At the same time you have I call it a public ownership in the sense that your lawns are cut by someone else.
Sure.
Your driveways are plowed. They're shoveled by someone else. Okay, that's the good thing. Sometimes the bad thing is, those very same private areas can become public as well, governed by an association. So how much noise you make, or whether you grill on a deck, or whether you sunbathe on the deck, or something could be regulated by someone else. So there's pros and cons, Ali.
But again, I think on looking at it more on the positive side, I want to shift over to the negative in a minute. But on the positive side, it is manageable living.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I think when I started and when I started to think about buying a place, the only thing I could think that was a realistic option, this was 20 years ago, was a condominium. Right. And in my mind's eye, the reason behind it was because of the fact, like you said, I didn't have to deal with mowing the lawn. I didn't have to deal with insurance. I didn't have to deal with the maintenance aspect of things. And to me, it was really easy. You move in, you unpack, and you live. And you don't have to deal with any of that stuff.
It's turnkey.
It's turnkey, right?
Yeah.
What other advantages, Ellen, do you see as far as buying a condo besides its convenience, if you will?
Well, you might have the opportunity to enjoy amenities such as a swimming pool or a tennis court that you might not otherwise be able to have or afford if you were living in a single-family home. Additionally, many people prefer the predictability of the monthly maintenance fees. It's easier for them to budget. They don't have to worry about the sudden problem that can come up in a single-family home.
Absolutely.
You have to budget X number of dollars every month, and it becomes like your mortgage payment or your taxes or your insurance. It's a fixed expense.
We're talking about contract enforcement. We're dealing with real estate transactions. Real estate transactions are governed by this, and you know this like the back of your hand, statute of frauds.
That's correct.
Tell us.
Well, in most situations, a contract is a contract. You and I get together, we talk about what we're going to agree to, we shake hands, that's a contract. For hundreds of years now, real estate has been one of those subject matters that is so important that there has to be a written contract, a contract in writing signed by the parties.
Now, let's talk about that. But I mean, a contract could simply be a back-of-the-napkin contract, can't it? I mean, if I'm sitting at a coffee shop and you and I are talking about me selling your house to you and it meets all the elements, it's a contract.
That's correct.
Right.
Hundreds of years ago, you had to have parchment and it had to have seals and all that kind of stuff. In modern times, back of the napkin, as long as it has the material terms of the agreement and both parties sign it, that's a contract. Biggest
misconception. I have this conversation with my clients all the time, and then I call you to reaffirm my understanding of it, and you always put me at ease. An offer that's executed by the buyer and seller is enforceable as to both parties.
Correct.
What's the ramifications of, say, the buyer having cold feet or the seller having cold feet?
Then the one party can enforce the contract according to its terms. You can go into court and get a judge to what we call specifically perform the contract and order that the transaction go forward.
It doesn't matter that this particular contract has other contingencies built into it, right? I think that's what the misconception is. The fact that a particular buyer's performance is contingent upon them signing another contract, or perhaps contingent upon them securing financing. Those things doesn't matter if it can be shown that they're breaching the terms of that contract up front.
That's true. I mean, contingencies exist. So if the contingency happens, if you don't get a mortgage commitment, for example, then you can get out of the contract.
Sure.
If those contingencies don't happen, it's an enforceable agreement.
Right. So without those contingencies having even been invoked, you can't just say, I'm just going to walk away from this thing.
That's right.
All right.
Well, you can, but then you have to talk to me.
What about the extreme on it? Because one of the contingencies that's often in documents, especially when condominiums, is the mutual agreement between the buyers and sellers' attorneys for the terms of the purchase and sale. So that one clause is often used as a potential catch for getting out of, because you guys have to agree, and we're never going to agree.
Right, but there's a case that came down on exactly that point. It was, and there was a standard Greater Boston Real Estate Board form, and it has that clause in it. And the court came down and said, yeah, but even purchase and sale agreements are fairly standard these days, and we all know what they are, we all know what they say, and so that contingency doesn't really void the contract.
It always surprises me how many buyers immediately go, I don't like the carpet, I'm not going to buy the house. You got to be kidding me.
That's crazy, and that's just the carpet in and of itself. I mean, I think it gets overlooked, right? Because carpets wear over time. They sort of they absorb the odor and the staining and all that other stuff. It's really not a very expensive fix, right?
No, it's not very expensive at all, and it makes such a huge difference. It's amazing. I think, primarily female shoppers have a hard time visualizing changing the floors often, and so when they go into a new home and they look at it, if it isn't attractive to them, they can't imagine, oh, that's an easy fix.
Interesting.
They really need to see it done.
We've talked about this before. I think in general, first-time home buyers, whenever they look at home improvement projects, and flooring probably falls the most victim to this, they automatically think big ticket item.
Right.
And I mean, a $1,500 fix in their mind could be a $15,000 fix, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, right? What are the trends that you're seeing today, Vinny, with regards to flooring? What are people attracted to? What are people implementing? There's a lot of sort of sustainable energy. That's the sort of the key word that gets thrown around all the time. There's green brokers that I hear as part of their signatures that gets thrown around. Do you see that being the trend?
We certainly see a lot of interest from people around green products and sustainable products. But the bigger trend is more around fashion and flooring. It's amazing how right now luxury vinyl tile, which if you're not familiar with it, is basically...
A luxury vinyl tile.
Luxury vinyl
great.
tile. Oh, it's
It looks
hot
great.
right
The
now.
bamboo ones look fabulous.
They look like wood. They can look like tile, stone, lots of different looks, some of them very contemporary, some very classic. It can be mounted on different surfaces that eliminates transmission of noise between floors. It acts as insulation. And so those are very hot right now, and they're actually very affordable.
Interesting. And they wear easily, I'm assuming. I mean, like, not wear easily, they wear well, in other words. It lasts
Extremely
for a while.
Absolutely. And also, if you had, let's say, a beautiful hardwood floor and you wanted the ability to go back to it someday, many of them are done in a click installation so that you can put a floor over the existing hardwood, for example, and then later on you could pull that back up again and recover the hardwood.
Interesting. So it's floating over the previous surface.
That's right.
If you will.
Eliminates a lot of floor prep, a lot of expense. It's a very easy way to go in and go over vinyl or ceramic tile. So very, very hot right now.
Really smart.
I've not heard that one. I like that.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great.
I've heard it with hardwood floors, or the floating floor, but not for a tile application.
Lots of kitchens and bathrooms right now. A lot of people want to put wood in a kitchen or a bathroom, but wood is the natural enemy of water, right?
Yeah.
So if your refrigerator line leaks, if your dishwasher leaks, your floor is going to explode if it's hardwood. But if it's made out of luxury vinyl tile, no problem. You clean it up, you're off to the races, really no issue.